What's good, my Slay Kingdom? I'm back. This is part 2 to what if Issei trained before getting the boosted gear. Now, no one actually addressed this in the comments. I know it's only been one day, but I was expecting at least someone to catch it. I didn't involve the vampire dude with the fight against Riser and all that. That's for one reason. I was wanting to see if anyone actually paid attention to the story. I'm guessing not, but still. The Where he was this whole time was that Sir Zex kind of said, don't let him be you're not powerful enough yet. So that's what happened. Really, I'm just fixing a mistake I made. I was just seeing if anyone caught it too. But not really anyone did. So he was actually not able to fight because they wouldn't allow his power to stop time, even though they were allowing some broken healing abilities. Anyway, after they get there, they just do their normal thing, and in this version, there's actually a summit calling upon everyone, and I'm going to say that Issei's actually got such a ranking because he single-handedly defeated someone who, with lack of a better word, was known to be untouchable. Not really untouchable, just unkillable. He turned this man to a crying mess, so he was considered one of the guys. They tried making him into a king. He didn't quite have the ability to become a king yet. Now, sure, he was stronger than everyone else, but he didn't really know how to become a king. They wouldn't tell him yet, since they needed him to at least be able to become one of the kings. Not really one of the kings of the underworld or overworld or anything like that. They just needed him to become a real king, so that they wouldn't have people challenging everyone every time, saying that they could beat him because of someone who beat him that wasn't even a king. So, they didn't need a lot of fighting happening. That was stupid. But they're actually having multiple banquets and stuff like that. I don't remember what happened in Season 2 when I tried watching the stuff. Didn't find it. Anyway. So, yeah. Issei's doing his best just to calmly fight, but someone comes out of nowhere with a light spear. And in this version, Issei's doing the whole thing where he's hanging out with his actual team in this version, but he's wearing a cloak. Also, he went to this thing expecting there to be a reason for him to wear stuff like this. Got a stupid tie and all that. He's even got a book he's reading. This girl, Sona, this whole time, why does he have to look that good every time she's trying to do something professional? And Sona's, but the only thing that really happens is literally nothing. It's nothing of importance. That dude who give me a second. Where'd it go? Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about the pause. So, if I'm not mistaken, I was talking about how this is what happening. Issei, well, he knows he's not actually on the level of all of them. The fallen angel dude and all of them happen. Give me a second. So these two arrive, and they actually say the same thing as a. Okay, back to what I was doing. So those two got there, and they were talking about how they didn't want the devils to interfere. And Issei himself stands up saying, how about the dragons? And then they said, dragons? What are you talking about? Because, yes, they knew that he had the powers of dragons and all that, but they didn't think he could actually call upon dragons. And they said, what about the Great Red himself? The one that not even the gods could deal with. And they said, not a chance something like that exists. And he just says, oh, you really think so? I have the Red Dragon of Domination as my basically power source of assistance. There's a dragon that makes this look like a joke. Y'all saying it doesn't exist? They said, no, but we don't want to actually have to deal with that. Do you know if you can make sure to keep it out? He said, nah. Sorry about that, guys. I just really need to get a drink of water. Anyway, Issei does some more training, and he works on being able to seal things. Though he doesn't steal things often, he can do it. He just really is not the best at it. So he's been training, and the same thing happened about them all visiting at Issei's house and them seeing the whole picture of Issei and a holy sword, and Drake told him that that was a holy sword, that it was in that picture with him, and that was actually a girl, and he was like, okay, so he wasn't really that shocked. And then he starts just doing that whole thing where he's stuck dealing with a lot of stupid stuff, like when that dude who's second in command, I forgot what his name is, he's that trash in my personal opinion. He does the same thing as in canon. They all get the swords together. Freed thinks he's finally got the swords ready to challenge the boosted gear, but he doesn't know that the boosted gear is, because he just thinks Issei's the boosted gear and that's his only weapon. But no, hand to hand, Freed's gonna easily be destroyed, and holy weapons don't affect him. At most, they annoy him. So, yes, even the holy sword Excalibur stabbing him in the stomach would be like, what's this supposed to be? It's not even tough. He could literally say that. It's just like, dude, you have a stab in your stomach. How are you not phased? He says that, but they all think that he'll be easily destroyed because of this little stab when he says, nah, I'm fine. Anyway, so Issei does he just keeps training, and when they get there and Kiba does the whole fighting thing against them, and Issei joins in, he says, okay, and he actually asks Kiba what percentage should they go at, because even that little vampire dude alone with his physical ability could go hand to hand with both of them at once and beat them, for one simple reason. Issei trained him, and I'm going to say Kiba learned a lot from Issei's swordsmanship wise and fighting wise, where he can actually fight without a sword. So he said, not all knights will be able to use a sword at all times, you know that, man. Kiba said, I know, but I don't accept it. He said, yeah, man, but you gotta learn how to at least fight with barehanded. And he said, okay, fine. And he learns how to fight barehanded and with a sword, so yeah, he teaches that dude, and he actually doesn't wear girl clothes in this version. The little vampire dude, he actually doesn't wear girl clothes in this version, but Issei, he says, man, weirdest thing I've ever seen. And everyone's just like, really, man? Just like, yes. So they all start to they actually say, 10% should be good. I mean, they'll say, stop underestimating us, and they throw an attack at Issei, and Issei doesn't even care, and he straight up just takes the hit and just said, for a piece of Excalibur that's really weak, and both of them are just like, oh really, how about 3? And it's just like, you really think that's gonna do something? Because if I'm not mistaken, that bigger sword is actually made of a couple pieces of Excalibur. Wait, no, it ain't. It's only made of the big, more powerful piece of Excalibur. Anyway, yeah, you got the changing one and that one, and they both hit Issei at once, and Kiba said, don't forget about me, and Issei told him to step back for a second for their fighting, and just like, he takes both the hits at once, and he said, I'm tired, you're too weak, I'm gonna sleep. And they're just like, this man really think he's slick. And they say, we know you got hurt, no demon can take it. He said, you're right. And then he just bust out angel wings and said, but angels could. It's just like, how'd you get those? And he said, Michael himself. It's just like, why would he give a demon angel wings? And he said, because I'm special. It's just like, and there's a rule that demons can't read the Bible themselves, but if someone else reads it to them, they can hear it. In other words, that translates to Issei stuck every single night reading a verse of the Bible to Asya because she really wants to hear it. And neither of them get hurt, and Issei, using holy light, can actually protect people. So any light attack doesn't affect him, and they said fine. And they start using just brute force trying to stop Issei, and he said that won't work either. And he pulls a normal, and Kiba makes swords, and they both learn their balance breaker. a lot better. Well, he learns his Juggernaut drive a lot better, and Kiba learns his balance breaker to get swords. And he said Holy and Devil would be really powerful, but I don't think it's possible. And he said make one of each, and he said I did it. And then it's just, and Issei said take one and the other, shing, shing, and he chops both at once with he just uses them both in a fight, and he grabs the holy sword and he fights with that, but he doesn't do much against much people, so he actually keeps fighting, and he fights that dude with the really, really weird powers, I'm not even sure what to call it, he fights Freed with the holy swords, they all do, and they notice, and whenever they keep doing their thing, it goes like in canon. The swords are found not to be easy to use. The one that grew up with Issei wound up being hurt by that dude by Freed whenever she was trying to stop Freed, but and couldn't keep up with the other two, with Kiba and Zenobia. Erina is her name, I think. Yeah, it's Erina. Anyway, she couldn't keep up, but she did her best, so. I'm tired. Sorry, guys, I did some work not too long ago, so I'm pretty tired. So, what happens is Issei keeps doing his thing, and they all keep doing their thing, and they think it couldn't get any worse. Wrong. The dude with 10 wings steps out and tries to absolutely destroy and wants to fight the strongest. Doesn't know Issei is that powerful. And Issei winds up going to Juggernaut Drive against him because Balance Breaker would be more than enough, but he doesn't use that. He goes into Balance Breaker, and they actually have Vali. Vali's the one that steps in and hits it with that whole white dragon thing. And I'm going to say it's later that they're going to fight. So they keep doing their thing. And he's imprisoned with the whole thing, the same thing as in canon. And when they meet up, he said, Red Dragon. And Issei said, White Dragon. And he said, so, how you been? She's like, you know we're supposed to fight, right? And Issei said, I will destroy you with one punch. He said, I'm a true demon, you're just a wannabe. Issei straight up catches his hand and picks him up with one hand, just saying, you're about to get crushed. And she's like, this is gonna really hurt. And he tries doing a full balance breaker and all that, but doesn't really work on Issei, because balance breaker is literally his go-to for dealing with lightweights. So, yeah, but not by lightweights, I mean like people like on the level of basically Rias and from Rias to Konako power level. And Kiba still gets the whole light and dark sword and starts fighting with that. Only this time Issei actually was out of the fight for a while because, well, the entire thing was sealed up and he couldn't move. He couldn't get there. Jasper tried stopping time, but wound up stopping Issei for a while. Hold on a second. Okay, so back to what I was doing and who this is mainly about. So, yeah. He basically says he won't show much of this off anymore unless he's actually at school, but he will show this off on the battleground all the time. So, yeah. He stopped showing off with the nerd look unless he's at school, but he still will always show off with the monster look on the battleground. So, school and battleground are two different places and they require two different looks. And I'm gonna say Issei can actually, once they're done with that, the same meeting was held, the same thing happened because Jasper wasn't able to go. Just because I'm making up some random reason. She still joins, like in canon. They figure out the truth about that one girl figures out the truth, and they keep fighting like full power. Although, in this version, when Azazel loses his arm, Issei's like, man, that's gotta suck. If only I would've done the work, then you wouldn't have to lose anything. He's just like, shut up, kid. And he actually said, I'm gonna replace this, but just like, coo. And then Issei just does what he normally does, which is basically the equivalent of destroying everything. When the white dragon goes against them all, it's just like, okay, fine, we're stuck against the white dragon. Just like, but I can take him. They're like, who? Who said that you could take him? And just like, because they didn't really fight yet, but that's basically how their fight's gonna go. He says, too weak, and he actually goes into balance breaker, and he said, maybe I'll need, and he actually goes into juggernaut drive against Issei, uh, even though the dragon didn't want him to. And then the scariest thing in their opinion happens. Issei comes at him with juggernaut drive. It's like, wait, you can do this too? And he's getting boost. And he actually winds up breaking a couple pieces off of the white dragon and him going down as well. He says if he can put both light and dark together, maybe I can put dividing and multiplication together. He does, and it basically hurts him, same as in canon, but he doesn't have the same thing where it messes with his lifespan. It doesn't change it at all. So Issei does that, and then he does the whole fight where he has to deal with them trying to take away Aussie and all that. He destroys that, and he says, I knew this would come in handy one day. And he says, and he touches her and says, dress break, using his full power, and it does its job perfectly. When he has to go deal with the whole fox and all that, kind of weird to deal with, but he still does. In this version, he can say, calm down, and everyone will just calm down. And that fox girl, he actually says, I know what to do. And he straight up just destroys that guy with the spear. He goes into his full power of his spear. And Issei says, aw, don't you think you're powerful? Gets divided down to where it's literally nothing but a toothpick. And he just says, boost. And he just punches the dude once in the face and breaks his nose. And it's just like, you really shouldn't have challenged me. So that's how Issei is. He keeps fighting like that, and eventually they wondering whose side is he gonna go on? Cyro or might have, and and they notice something. If someone winds up killing Issei, that would invoke the wrath of all of the every faction and everything. It would invoke the wrath of everything on that one, whoever killed Issei. And this is when he starts talking with Riser again and starts telling him to man up and don't be the same way he was before. Riser listens to this and actually becomes a good person, but not a perfect person. He's still Riser, so yeah. I will say this, not even Riser dares to challenge the strongest. No matter how much healing he uses, he even said that he could be using all the Phoenix Tears he has over the years, and he actually would lose. And Riser trains with Issei and all that, and Riser said, while you do have the blessing and a couple pawns from the mother, he actually grants a couple powers himself, because he notices that, well, his entire squad changed a lot after he got absolutely destroyed. A lot of them changed people and all that, so he doesn't have any pawns anymore. All the ones that were pawns, he actually wound up promoting to upper levels, like rooks and all that. So he doesn't have any pawns anymore, and he said, well, he has a couple pawns, so he just gives Issei 4 pawns, so yeah, that works perfectly with all the numbers, so now he even has more pawns, and he notices something. He can permanently change, and he even has a king inside of his chest, because he is a king now. And when he fights Cyro Org, they notice something. The entire team, when the whole thing with Loki happens, same kind of thing happens, only in this version, Issei himself said, I think I can seal him longer, and uses these little sealing things. I'm going to say each one of these basically is an hour. And they noticed that they have sealed him for 1 day, and he said, I have a lot of these things. I'm going to say Issei had like 400 of them, and he said, I'm going to play a little game. And they're just like, why, man? The more magic you put into them, the longer they will last. And he actually makes it where and he says, if I run out of magic, I want all of y'all to give me magic. Right before he breaks out, when he says, I'm finally free, I'm going to put another one on. And they notice that every time this dude gets angrier and angrier, and they even get Mjolnir there, and Cyberorg himself is there, and everyone's there. It's just like, okay, so here's exactly what's gonna happen. We're all here, this little dude's here. The second he breaks out, everyone here is going to beat him down to a bloody pulp. And Issei said, I like the dogs. Fenrir and all them. The snake, he says, not as cool, but cool that it's a dragon. And when Mjolnir falls down, Issei straight up picks up the hammer and said, it's a pretty good weapon. I'm gonna want to give me one of my own. And Odin hears this and he says, I'll consider getting you one Milt. And it's just like, yeah. Finally, I get a cool one too. It's just like, okay. So they're all confused on how a single human, just a normal old guy, is picking up the hammer that some gods can't even pick up. And Issei straight up picks it up and starts like using it like his normal it's like was his normal weapon. And he starts destroying Loki and said, this probably brings back memories, doesn't it, Loki? And it's just like, you know the mythology. And Issei said, yeah, but they made you seem a lot more cool in the movies. There's movies about the mythology? And he says, Marvel. It's just like, you little. And whenever he goes to punch Issei about this, Issei catches his hand and says, not. And just starts smacking him. So finally, he goes before the fight with Issei before the whole fight against Riser and all that happens. Not Riser, Cyberorg, like in canon for season 4. Issei just says something that he's just wanted to say. What's wrong? He says this to Cyberorg himself, and it's just like, nothing's wrong. He said, don't lie to me. Family member or something, and he just said, hit on the head, didn't I? He said, yeah. They said, and Issei said, I might have a way. He still developed that stupid talking thing that's called Titty Talk, but it's really now, and it has other names, like one's called Heart Voice, which I'm making that up. It has another one that's where it can speak to the heart, and it does. So just like in canon, he tries doing that, only this time, it's not after the fight that she'll wake up. She wakes up instantly, and when she wakes up, here's the exact thing that happens. Where am I? What's happening? Who are you? And then Riser himself walks in saying, what was that noise? And then Issei said, your mom's awake, man. Be with her, and saying, what did you do, man? He said, nah, I just used my ultimate powers. And Riser said, thank you so much. You deserve a king spot, don't you? He said, yeah, probably. But I won't take one yet. So, Issei became a king, and he notices something. He's strong, but there were a lot of fights that he couldn't prep for. A lot of things he couldn't stop. So, every time a fight happened, he would basically interfere and start doing his thing. But not much changes. Over the series, everyone being themselves happens, so yeah, it works itself out, and Konako and basically all the girls joined his harems, like in canon, but I'm going to say that some of them joined a lot faster than they did in canon, like Konako, she joined it a lot faster simply because she could tell that Issei was a good person, and, well, I'm going to say that girl who was a teacher, what is her name? She became a Valkyrie. She was one of the Valkyries. Her too. She was as well. Sorry about that. Don't know what this thing is. That's what it is. Nothing important. Anyway, so Issei's doing his thing, which is right before the fight. He says, which they still have. They don't have it on record of him doing that, but they asked if he would ever do that, and he said, no, but he is fine if it ever had to happen. And basically, any person would notice that he's not weak, but he won't fight the way he's supposed to. I'll probably do a second version of this where it's like a different thing, but yeah, so Issei keeps training even more, and when he fights Cyber Org, the same rule happens, and they notice that the only one there that can actually be entered in a fight is really just Issei for fighting everyone, and they said, "Well, make it similar to the first one I've been to, a battle royale type thing." They said, "Sounds alright, but I'm not sure why you want it to be a battle royale." Issei said, "It just seems like it'd work best." He said, "Okay." So the battle royale type thing happens, so Issei basically said, none of them are even coming near us, are they? This would be him saying this right to Cyber Org, where they're just straight standing in the middle and no one's going anywhere near the middle. And then someone launches an attack. The stone dude on his team actually throws a punch at Issei, and he straight jumps in that punch and tanks it, and then throws a punch back saying, "You're tough, but not tough enough." Without even going into any power up, he just punches the dude. And Issei knows he's the strongest one there, maybe second to Cyber Org if he was weaker, if he didn't have his balance breaker. And same kind of thing happens, only this time they don't take out any of the team, and he says, "Everyone back up, team versus team." They all back up, and it's just like balance breaker. And he goes into his buffed up form, and in this version he actually gets more than just a chest plate. He gets past the arm and chest plate, he actually gets a helmet. I'm going to add a helmet and a back plate onto that, so he does a whole explosion thing where he actually gets that. And they said, "How long will it take him to get the full gear?" And they said, "Maximum." And they said, "What?" And the gauntlet said, "You've reached the maximum that you're able to do with your current power without hurting yourself." And he said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, if you don't practice more with your power, then you won't be able to boost up any more." And Issei actually keeps training, and he actually becomes one of the kings. What I mean by training is after fighting Cyborg. In this version, that entire team is just like, okay, so we got one on all of us. Makes sense. And in this version, Issei goes to his most powerful form, which is called Juggernaut's Drive. He goes into this and straight up destroys that entire team, and then there was only two people left. The queen, who all her power was just stripping, and then you have Cyborg himself, and it's just like, we're about to actually have a fight on our hands. And he actually gets into his lion gear, but he said, "I've been training since we last met," and Issa said, "So have I, but I won't use it." And I'm going to say that there's beyond the lion form that he used in canon, but he still can only go into that, but he doesn't go past it, because going anything past it would knock him out. So Issei and all of them keep going in a fight type situation, and Issei's entire team was shielded by Issei's body, but in the dragon form, but people could slip. All of them slipped by and actually attacked the team. Rias and Akano were the last two other than Issei, so Issei straight roared at them. Akano was stopped, but then it was just a 2-on-2. If you're wondering why Asya and Kenneth had been able to survive that long and not in this version, just because she wasn't able to. Because there was an entire team assault, and they were all strong enough to actually keep up with them a lot more. They just couldn't keep up with all them on him because there were two monsters that were fighting in the background behind them all, so they didn't want to. They kept watching this because it was going to be the focal point. No matter what they did, no one could see it. So it was just multiple knockouts, and Rias, the only reason she didn't get knocked out is because Akano pushed out of the way and take the hit for her, and then Issei said okay, and he actually roared at 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 Cyborg's team, and Cyborg's team went next to Cyborg with their power, and Rias went on top of the dragon form, and she actually was launching attacks off the dragon form, and he went with attacks, and he did an actual roar like he does against that weakling who had tried to kill Ossia, and that doesn't happen the same way in canon. It kind of happens, but it doesn't at the same time. I'm not even trying to say that. So he doesn't have the same quite power as he does in canon. So he doesn't get the same power from Oppai. He just gets a lot stronger after training. So yeah, it's still a harem anime. All that stuff, all the weird scenes still happen, and all that happens. It's just not the same way. He still gets that sword from Michael, only this time it was right after the Riser fight. And the sword, he actually can keep all that stuff in his sacred gear. He notices that he doesn't need to have that extra magic wasted when he can just put it all in his sacred gear. And he just puts everything in his sacred gear, and he says, it's a lot easier to do. And sacred gear said, yeah, but you have to activate me to get anything out. It's just like, what if I put it in my bag and you're silent? It's just like, touche, touche. So the bag, he keeps it, and he keeps a couple books in there, but nothing much. And what I mean by a couple books, it's actually designed to where you can actually fit the gauntlet in, summon something and pull it out, but he only usually summons a bow staff and pulls it out, like throwing the bow staff to materialize in the air and actually fighting with it. He only does like stuff like that with things, and he can actually throw his phone out of it and catch it. So after the fight, he notices that entire team got knocked completely out, and Issei and Rias were the only two standing. The only reason Rias was standing is because if the king got knocked out, then everyone would lose. But they noticed something. All the fallen angels in them, they didn't arrive for this. And the reason they didn't arrive is because they were not allowed to because there was a full team. Yes, a couple of people had joined since then, so it was considered a full team. So there was no need for anyone to be there, and that's why no one was. So, yeah, that's what happened. And then I'll be waiting until season 5 comes out to make part 3. Sadly, it's not seeming to come out for a couple years. Sorry, everybody, but I will continue this series, even if I have to come all the way back to my first couple YouTube videos to check it out. So, yeah. I might redo the series. It's all up to y'all if y'all want me to redo, if y'all want me to do a different thing, but this is probably going to be the end of the series for now. But yeah, I might make a part 3 if I need to for like everything else. So, bye. For this part anyway. So, yeah. It was good having y'all. And remember, stay slick. My kingdom. Got the knights, the rooks, everything. All y'all, stay slick.